happens. If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening and welcome to episode 27 of Horsin Around right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravitz, along with tonight's special guest, the 2019 BCBC champ, longtime friend and fan of the show, Mr. Brad Anderson. Brad, how you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing good, Howard. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Absolutely. This is Brad's first time on the show. Brad, the first thing I want to do is apologize because we should have had you on the show a long time ago. I don't know what happened. Our wires got crossed, whatever, but we'll let you introduce yourself and we're going to talk some horse racing here in just a minute. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Hit the notification bell below the video player so that you know when new content will rise, and smash that like button as well. That will send the YouTube algorithm right to this channel. Of course, you can follow me on X right there at HKravitz, and scrolling to the bottom of the screen, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com is my email. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Power Picks, still doing very well. I had some plays of the day last week, Brad, that did win for us. Not crazy prices, but hey, a win is a win, and we'll take it. And we've got a great website as well, hhhracingpodcast.com. Please look into Matt Miller's new book, which myself and Brad Anderson, of course, is featured in the book, A Better Way of Thinking. Please look into that at betterwaythinking.com. And the last thing, Brad, we want to mention, we have Saratoga and Del Mar Power Picks. They're now available, and I want a little bit of breaking news. I'm not worried. I'm not discouraged, but the numbers are a little bit down right now for our Saratoga Power Picks. And of course, we do have them available through our website. We do have to have a certain amount of people that buy the Power Picks for us to make it worthwhile. So if you've not subscribed to our Saratoga only Power Picks, please make sure you do so. Look to our website, hhhracingpodcast.com. Click on the Power Picks tab, and please look into that. The meet starts Thursday, as you well know, Brad, and you and I, my friend, are going to be there along with the BCBC crew and a bunch of people in a few weeks. So please look into purchasing those Saratoga Power Picks. Brad, here's what we're going to do tonight. We got two segments. We're going to talk to you for about 20 minutes or so. And then I have a taped episode with our good friend Matt Miller. By the way, Brad, early happy birthday to Matt Miller. It's Matt's birthday tomorrow. He's out to dinner with his family. That's why he cannot be with us here live tonight. But I got a feeling, knowing Matt, he might be popping up in the chat anyway from dinner, Brad, as you well know. But Brad, before we get started into the Indiana Derby and Indiana Oaks and talk a little bit about your contest background, please introduce yourself to everyone, because although you've been in the chat many times and your name's been mentioned many, many times, of course, as a worthy champion of the BCBC and other times, but please tell everyone how you got involved with horse racing, with myself and Matt Miller, with this podcast. The floor is yours for a minute or two, Brad.
Well, Howard, first off, thank you for including me, and you don't need to apologize on my belated appearance. You have lots of great content, and I always like to just listen and observe. But my horse playing story is a little bit different than most. I really came into it purely as an entertainment avenue for me. I grew up on a farm in the Midwest, so I've always loved animals. And Kentucky Derby, my mom would get us into the living room and say, okay, pick a horse. And we would watch the race. And it was just pure entertainment. I loved it. I loved seeing those horses just run their hearts out. But it was, Secretariat, and then Seattle Slew, and Affirmed. And with Stevie Coughlin on board, Stevie was just about a year older than me at the time. So, when he made the cover of Sports Illustrated, I was just a fan for life. And really, the next 35 years, that's what I did. I was a fan. I played athletics myself. I went to college. I started a career, started a family, really had priorities in different areas. And I would continue to watch the Triple Crown races, but not a lot of wagering. So I just didn't have the time. And, go forward about another 35 years, and it's ironic that then American Pharoah wins the Triple Crown, and I'm at a different stage in my life. I've got a successful career. The kids are older. I've got a little more free time, and I started, playing the horses from a gambling perspective. And I really didn't know a lot, so I was pretty stupid. I learned the hard way. I looked for books to read. And ironically, Howard, you'll get a kick out of this. I went back and I watched the what was it called? Howard's Horse Handicapping on YouTube back in February of 2018. I think it was episode 7. And it's ironic because I go back and I think about that. I'm a big Breaking Bad fan. So, the chemistry, the high school teacher, I look at you're a math teacher, high school, and really adjacent to where the high school where my kids all graduated.
Not too far away.
So it was just a connection, really, really strange. But I really started to just absorb a lot of content and read a lot of books. It also happens that I had a really good colleague at our firm. He was a lawyer. I was on the technology operations side and had lots of good conversations in the lieu of business. And I found out that he was a horse player. And we would spend some time at Arlington Park. And I started to learn a lot. And to no surprise, his name was Matt Miller. And really, I'd been fortunate to be kind of taught and mentored by some of the best handicappers, which now I put Howard, you in that park along with Pete and Paul, and then a betting expert in Matt. And it really just kind of connected. And Matt introduced me into tournament play, and I started to understand the value of tournaments as opposed to just cash with the prize pool. Played some tournaments at Arlington, went to the NHC in 2017, and then went to my first Breeders' Cup in Churchill in Lexington in 2018. Learned a lot, and then went out to Santa Anita for 2019 and just had an incredible, fortunate experience where I was in a position. I made the right decision looking back on it. It was against my handicapping, but I was taught in these tournaments, you're there for the win. You're not there for anything else. And I felt like that was an easy decision for me. So it's just been...
Brad, it's unbelievable in your second Breeders' Cup betting challenge that you win the whole damn thing. It's a great story. If you want to read the story, it's in Matt Miller's book, of course. We're not going to rehash it tonight, but you did see Vino Rosso in person. What was it, last year? And we were at Keeneland recently. I know you got to see your boy who won you, who helped you or actually clinched the win for you in the 2019 BCBC.
Yeah, my connections with these animals are just special to me. So, yeah, we were able to see Vino Rosso, and then Matt was able to see Nick Go. And the connection is just special to me. I'm a strong believer in aftercare. So to me, I want to see what these athletes are doing and how they're being taken care of. And we've seen some beautiful farms that these horses live on. So yeah, it makes me feel good. But, let me just wrap this story up, Howard. What's ironic then is, in 2021, I go to Del Mar with Matt and I, and all of a sudden I get introduced to Howard Kravitz, the Walter White of Breaking Bad. And it turns out then, another epic experience. We enjoyed a great oceanside celebratory dinner. And the friendship really took off from there. And it's been fortunate because, now I've met Paul and Pete and Kyle and Noah and Patrick and Charlie. It's just a great crew of friends that have grown up that have taken me from, my secretariat days all the way to being in the winner's circle with Cody's Wish at Breeders' Cup for his victory. So how about that? It's a journey that just never stops getting better and better. And it's great when you can celebrate that with friends like we have.
Well, it's so cool, man. I love spending time with you, and you're such a pleasure to be around. So easygoing, and you mentioned it's been a journey. Talk about a journey. I think we got to end your conversation in about 15 minutes with your speaking of journeys, your hiking expeditions recently, because that's a whole other story. We'll get into that a little bit later, though. Brad,
Yeah.
let's talk about horse racing here. There were several stakes this weekend, but let's just focus very quickly on the Hoosier State, on Horseshoe Indianapolis. They had their biggest card of the year. I think it was two very interesting races that might have some implications going forward, especially with the boys division, which we'll take a look at second. But let's go ahead and take a look at first the Indiana Oaks. And it was won by Chattelis and paid $23.80. Impel was the big favorite. I know a lot of people needed Impel for different reasons, and Impel was just pretty disappointing at 30 cents to the dollar. Brad, I know you partook in the races from home betting, Horseshoe Indy. I think one of the main questions we have to get answered from you specifically is, did you feel like there was a speed bias? Because in general, most tracks are front end tracks, right? Most tracks in this country, you want to be forward. There are exceptions, but it felt like, to me at least, and I went through all the races, it sure seemed to me like, I don't know if inside was best, but certainly did want to be close up. And Chalice wired the field here and upset the field, and we'll go and watch the race all the way through. And Pell, like I said, was the big favorite, and I thought got a little bit too cautious a ride. I'm not big on criticizing riders too much, Brad. It's a tough thing, but I thought Drew was a little bit too cautious and too overconfident. That's my opinion. But what was your take on this race?
Impel.
I just thought Impel was the class of this field. I didn't like the price, so I didn't end up betting it. But I think your point on the speed bias, I mean, yeah, all you got to do is watch this race.
Now, Brad, let me interrupt you a second. Now, right here, okay, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. Here's Impel in the Juddmonte, right? Broke very well, and is really, I mean, if Drew wanted to, he could have sent, right? I mean, I think we'd agree with that. I know he has horses to do his inside, but it looked like if he wanted to, he could have taken the proverbial bull by the horns, and he decided to take back. Now, he's sitting comfortably. I just don't understand why he wanted to be 4 or 5 back on this kind of track. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think, I mean, if you look at his past races, he's always kind of rated. So, I mean, I wasn't too worried here because I thought he was in a good position. I thought, I forget what the first quarter was. I don't think it was extremely
23.72. It's at the top right hand corner, Brad.
So to me, where I was a little disappointed is I just thought he would have something, to close into.
Yeah.
And he didn't have anything. And hats off to Chattelis.
Right here, Brad, now he's in 5th. Like,
yeah, right.
I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking. Maybe I'm a little bitter because I needed her. By the way, if anyone's got a drink at home, I don't have a drink, Brad. You might want to have a drink. You're calling it he quite a bit.
Yes.
It is a female horse. I just to me, they weren't flying. Shouldn't Impel be like right here where my arrow is? Like, why be? Yeah. Right. I don't know. I just think it was an overconfident ride. That's all.
Yeah, it could have been, and maybe he thought that Chattelis was going to come back to him. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, hats off to Chattelis. It's just a good-looking horse who'd been working well. I just didn't think he had that in him. I mean, now look where Impel is now, and you're feeling okay, pretty good. Yeah. He's making his move, maybe a little wide. But to me, it feels like he's got plenty of horse here.
Yeah, I thought right here she was going by, but I mean, but then about right here, I'm like, ooh, I don't know. And Impel disappointed quite a bit on Derby weekend. Now she's on the wrong lead here, Brad. She finally gets to the outside and she levels out a little bit, but Little Jamie ran a big race too. I know some people like Little Jamie a little bit in this race. Little Jamie ran well. They went 1-2 around the track, and Impel just, I don't know, she's picking it up late, or maybe the front runners are sort of giving it up. I'm not usually a fan, Brad, of races that end in like a, that close to finish, like a 4-way photo. You look at the buyers and, horses can improve from 2 to 3, right? I mean, Chalice only had to prove 6 points, and that's very well within her scope. What surprised me, Brad, is that Impel didn't run back to her like high 80s. That's what surprised me the most. Would you turn her back? I mean, the Test is a great race at Saratoga, going 7 furlongs. If you're going to go at Saratoga, it's got to be 1.125 miles. I mean, we don't need to tell Brad Cox what to do, but what would you do with Impel?
Oh, I think, I mean, to me, first off, Chadless has been off for 7 months. So, I mean, that was the other thing that was very impressive about that ride, and be able to re-break there to beat Little Jamie. I think I'm not ready to give up on Impel. I think, it was interesting when they interviewed Brad Cox when his other horse wins the Derby. You could tell he was disappointed with Impel. So I would think that you got to bring him back. As you said, at this age, he's still relatively young, not a lot of races.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd worry about cutting him back. I would probably let him run, a mile.
You go 2 turns. I mean, she handled it fine in the spring.
Yeah, right, she did.
Right? I mean, so I don't know. It was interesting, but anyone who had Shadowless, congratulations. Boy, you got paid, Brad, 11-1. Anyone who had
I know.
Shadowless, real nice exacta there. Let's see what it paid here. I'm trying to look at the bottom of this screen. Where is the exacta? It's up top. The exacta was, I mean, $200, Brad.
I know.
Look, I never would have had it. I'm not going to sit here and say I would have had it. But in a 6-horse field, with 2 horses that are pretty nice. I mean, I was against Band of Gold completely. I did like Neon Icon. She just didn't really fire. It was very hard to make up ground. It felt like to me on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I did a saver double here. As I said, I really liked Impel, but I think Impel to Dragon Guard was like 5-2. So there wasn't enough reward there for the risk. So I ended up doing Neon Icon and Little Jamie into Dragoon Guard, and was really pulling for Little Jamie. But hats off to Chadless. I think that horse. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what's next for that horse as well.
Very. Brad, there's a lot of comments in the chat from Sam Horde. Sam, I don't believe we've seen your name before. Welcome to the show. Way too cautious a ride, especially for with a horse that likes to be on the front end. I tend to agree with that. Nathan Kaczynski, what's up, Nathan? Don't think Impel wants 2 turns. I'm not. We'll see. We'll see about that. Chris Couples, fantastic blog writer for In the Money. My dumb ass bet Chalice in the Breeders' Cup betting challenge underneath. Just FYI, did not have a dime in her Saturday. Boy, Brad, if you and I've done that, every handicapper, right? You like a horse one day and you don't bet them the next time they don't fire. I mean, I'm sure you have a zillion of stories like that. Right?
Yeah,
for sure. Rob Capalbo, new to the podcast via reading Matt's book. What's up, Rob? Thanks for joining the show. Do you guys have a spot at Saratoga where
yes, we do, Rob.
Love to say hello. Now, Brad, we haven't talked about this yet as a group, but I think we should do a meet and greet again. I think we did it at the, for the 4-Star Dave Bar, I'd like to say.
Yep.
Is that where we did it last year?
Yep.
We'll have to talk about that, Brad, unless you have a better idea of where to meet people.
No, other than a bookstore, selling Matt's book. I think that'd be another place.
That might work. We'll have to talk to Mr. Miller about that. Let's see. The last thing I'll say about this race, then we're going to move on, Brad. If Pell does go 2 turns to Saratoga, there's a horse called Torpedo Anna that I don't think she can mess with. So I don't know. They might take her out of town 2 turns. It's my gut feeling, and go to a nice stake somewhere else other than Saratoga. We'll have to see. Let me take the banners off the screen at the bottom. I do also want to mention, Brad, before we get into the Indiana Derby, and then we'll finish the segment with you. The Ben and Boozin show is going to be moved to 8:30 Eastern starting time on Wednesdays. It's our new summer hours. And Brad, this Wednesday, the Ben and Boozin boys are doing opening day Saratoga late pick 5.
Yeah.
How about that? The boss, i.e. me, threw them a bone. I'm like, hey, you guys want it. You got it. So they're going to be doing the opening day late pick 5, Brad, Wednesday. Again, Ben Boozin starts now at 8:30, half an hour later Eastern on Wednesday. And then also, Brad, very exciting, our Saratoga Today morning shows, the day of the races, start this week. We always do them Saturdays and Sundays, but we're going to do a special edition Thursday morning. So Thursday morning, myself, Pete, and Paul will be live to go through the early pick 5 on opening day at Saratoga. And then Thursday night, our regular picks and ponies, Brad, will cover the late pick 5 on Saturday. We're all Saratoga this week, Brad. How can you not be? It's, I think, the best meet in the entire country every year.
No, it's a fun 4 weeks of racing. And don't look at the weather yet, Howard. Don't look at the weather yet.
I won't. Oh, you know me. I'm not gonna lie. I snuck a peek. I got no comment right now. Brad, let's talk about the Indiana Derby. Dragoon Guard was very impressive. And you know what? Look, I can, we can criticize jocks a little bit, Brad. Giroux was on Dragoon Guard. I think he learned his lesson because in this race, he did not mess around at all. Dragoon Guard won at 9-5 in an exciting stretch run, holding off Stronghold. You can see that the Dragoon Guard was second choice, wire of the field. Pretty good fractions here, 23-3-47, 110-3, 135. This was legitimate racehorse time. You see the Dragoon Guard, pretty much paired up his buyer top with a 92. Stronghold, I was not a huge fan of him in general. I just think the West Coast horses in general, Brad, were disappointing this Derby trail, unless you like the Baffert horses, but a lot of those were hurt and blah, blah, blah. Your thoughts on Dragoon Guard wiring the field in the Indiana Derby? I'll just shut my mouth and run it through. He is the 8 who just breaks from the outside and goes.
And right there is the grain, Dragoon Guard.
Yeah, Howard, this was my play of the day. I love this horse. It was working out with Impel. So to me, I watched a few of those workouts and really, really thought this horse, was ready to be, a strong contender, a late contender in this 3-year-old group. But I'm with you. I just had this as Dragoon Guard and Stronghold. I didn't like any of the horses coming out of the Texas Derby. I just didn't really feel like they were in the same class. And, this was my play of the day, and I ended up just doing a straight exacta 8/2. It paid 8-1. I was very happy.
Beautiful.
Especially after I didn't cash in on the double into Dragoon Guard. But I just love the way this horse runs. Free and easy. Just looks like it's ready to just let the jockey tell it where and when it needs to go.
Brad, how worried were you about Stronghold? He got a good trip. Right here when he tipped out, I'm sure he thought, oh boy, this is going to be a horse race.
Right.
But Dragoon Guard held him off.
Yeah, Stronghold, I think this is the first race since the Derby. He's a classy horse. I think he won the Santa Anita Derby. So I knew he was going to be coming, but I think, he just let Dragoon Guard get the first break there on the turn, and that horse just didn't want to stop.
It really wasn't close. He finished second, by the way, in the Santa Anita Derby.
Oh, second,
yeah, that's okay. It really wasn't close, Brad, and I got to tell you, this is exactly this kind of race where you'll see Stronghold in the PPs, which we'll take a look at right now. And if you don't watch the race, people are like, oh, Stronghold ran well. I got to say, I don't think he did much running. He got an absolute dream trip, made up no ground. I know Dragoon Guard is a nice horse, but I don't know. This is a total play against three next time. I just think he's an okay horse. I just don't think much of him, to be without being, look, I'd love to own the damn thing. But when you're a handicapper, you got to be very picky. And he gets good trips, but he just doesn't run that fast in general compared to other 3-year-olds in the division.
Well, and compared to, I don't want to show my bias, but I think compared to West Coast horses, I think he will be a very strong contender if he continues to compete. But anytime he comes east, I just think there's other stronger horses.
Dragoon Guard by Arrogant, and guess who won the Travers on the lead? His daddy. I don't know if he's that kind of horse yet, but he's only going to get better, Brad. What's interesting? He's out of a Mizzen mass mare, so I wouldn't be shocked if at some point this horse takes to the turf too, if they decide to go that route. Dragoon Guard is talented and just one of those up-and-comers that I think is going to be really interesting to see what he does going forward the rest of the year.
Yeah, Cox only ran him once as a 2-year-old. So, to me, that's what – he's only, I think, run 4 races. I
Yep,
think there's a lot of upside here.
I
I
do.
don't. It'll be interesting to see if he brings them back to Saratoga and what race.
I agree. I liked EJ won the cup a little bit. If I knew, I wouldn't have made that pick. After I saw the track situation, I didn't like him nearly as much. He didn't run great. I was wrong there. Um, I didn't like Stronghold that much. We talked about on Thursday. He ran fine. Congrats to Dragoon Guard. I thought Dragoon Guard would face a lot more pace pressure, to be honest. When he
Yeah.
made the top, I was surprised. But look, jockey intent means a lot, Brad. And Drew's like, F it. I know what happened last time, the last race before. I'm not going to let it happen again.
Right.
Brad, before we let you go, we really appreciate your time. I want you to touch on two things. I have a tape segment with Matt Miller we're going to show here in just a minute, talking about Dutching bets. Um, how much have you learned through contests about Dutching bets, which is, of course, betting different amounts to get the same result? And in general, just talk about how much you've learned from Matt Miller and your contest play. I know that could be an hour conversation, but certainly handicapping is one thing, but really structuring your bets and bet construction is probably 75% of winning these contests.
Yeah, it is. And Howard, I'm a big believer in, I'm a technologist by heart, so I'm a data guy, and I keep a lot of records on my own betting, but I also keep a failure journal when it comes to these contests. And a lot of my early failures was not treating these doubles in a way that gets you value based on your opinion, as opposed to just throwing dollars and hoping that you get it. So
Sure.
to me, it really has taught me a lot. I mean, going back to 2019, I played 2 entries. And in my other entry, I was alive to a 6-figure score to 3 other horses that I had Dutched outside of Vino Rosso and McKenzie. So to me, I learned that from Matt. Matt, is a great educator when it comes to risk reward and pressing your opinions. And when you box horses, that's telling me, or it tells me, that I just don't have an opinion. And that's wrong. You have an opinion. You need to structure it. And in these contests, and I'm sure Matt will get into it, as you lay out your plays, it becomes much easier to say, I need, let's say, $1,000 out of this race, and I'm betting X. Tell me how I can Dutch it to get $1,000 no matter what horse wins if I have 2 or 3 horses in leg 2. So it's a really smart way of playing these contests in a way that presses your opinion, but still plays in a pool that's different than the win pool where I traditionally play.
Yep.
And now I play win and daily doubles. And I'm starting to learn more about exactas, because they are a key tool that I need to have in my toolkit in these contests. It's just a little different way of handicapping that I need to adjust to.
I think so. Now, Brad, I want to put you on the spot. I'm about to show the segment. Do you want to stay on in the background?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to stay on.
All right. So, Brad, after the segment's over, again, it's about 21 minutes, everyone. Please be ready to take some notes, whether you're watching live or replays, because I really feel like this tape segment that Matt and I did is very beneficial, whether you're a $2 bettor or a $100 bettor, a contest player, a weekend warrior, whatever. And then, Brad, I'm going to put you on mute. You and I will be in the background, and then we'll talk about what you see here coming up. So I'm going to take Brad and I off the screen, and we're going to show a taped episode of myself and Matt Miller, actually from last night, regarding the advantages of Dutching contest bets. So let me go ahead and bring it up on the screen right now, and I will. And now let's talk with the 2021 BCBC champion, Mr. Matt Miller. Matt, how you doing tonight?
Doing great. Fun to be with.
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining the show once again. We just talked to Brad Anderson, of course, good friend of ours, the 2019 BCBC champion. We like to talk about wagering strategies on this podcast. It's very important. Obviously, handicapping is important as well. But as you know, there is a better way of thinking out there. Look into Matt's book. And one of the better ways of thinking is using a concept called Dutching bets. Now, Dutching bets is used a lot actually overseas, but it is used in the United States as well for many reasons. And before we get into Dutching bets, just like the country of origin or language. It's spelled exactly how you think it would be. Let's talk about boxing horses. Now, I don't know about you, Matt, but when I was younger and not nearly as smart and I didn't have a mentor and etc., I used to box horses all the time, which of course, let's take an exacta, for example. If you like the 1 and 2 horse, you can just do an exacta box 1-2, which means you're betting the same amount of dollars for the 1-2 exacta as you are for the 2-1 exacta. I know people also like to play trifecta boxes, for example. If you do box the 1-2-3, again, you're saying there's an equal chance of the finish being 1-2-3 as it is being 2-1-3, 3-1-2, etc. Any combination. Matt, let's talk about why boxing really is not a great idea from a pure mathematical standpoint. This is something that I know you and I have talked about quite a bit.
Well,
Let's talk about some reasons why a boxing, whether it's exact or trifecta, is probably not the best way to go.
and it's funny, you actually gave away the answer 15 seconds ago without realizing it. I don't know if you caught it, but in the words you used, you talk about if your opinions on each are the same. Well, that is exactly the point. If you start with the premise of wanting to bet on your opinions, a box is only really appropriate if you give equal chance to everything happening within the box. And so if you genuinely believe equal chance of any of two of these three horses finishing first and second, then I suppose an exacta box would work. But if instead you're thinking, well, really, I like one horse in particular, and there's these other two that I'd like to play underneath, we'd get away from that box very quickly because you'd be wasting money on combinations that you don't want as much.
Right. So let's take an example of when people do an exacta box with 3 horses. But let's just use the 1, 2, and 3, for example. If I like the 1 even a little bit more than the 2 and 3, and this is regardless of the price too, because what the odds say should not affect whether you like a horse more or less, unless maybe it's a first time starter or etc. I suppose there are circumstances, but in general, you shouldn't let odds be your guide in this situation. If you like the 1 horse, Matt, more than the 2 and 3, what should people be doing in an exacta box situation or an exacta situation? Sorry, not boxing.
Well, yeah, and it's funny. I might even go backwards from there and say I'd probably be betting the 1 to win. I'd probably have my exactas 1 over 2-3, and probably 2-3 over 1. I probably wouldn't mess around with 2-3 or 3-2. The other key point to make here, and I think if you were to go look up the technical definition of Dutching, we've been talking about for a second here structuring so as to avoid combinations that are inefficient or that you don't want. But I also think the real underlying purpose behind Dutching is essentially to equalize the payoffs associated with each of the desired combinations. So in the 1-2 and 1-3 example, let's assume one of them pays twice the amount of the other. Look, a lot of us, especially in the exacta box days, you just get the same amount on each, and that's that. You do have the ability when Dutching, again, this is a super simple example, you can calculate the amount you would need to bet on each of the 2 exactas so that you would get the exact same amount regardless of which one it was. Obviously, you have to bet less on the one that has the higher price. But I think when you look up Dutching, that's the real intent behind it, is to equalize the prices you're getting on a variety of combos. Again, assuming you think those combos have an equal likelihood of happening. If you don't, that's when you hear Howard and I use words like press up and things like that. That's when you're saying, okay, I've got my equal combos, but I like this one more. And so, right, hit it harder, press it up, whatever terminology you want to use. But that's the idea.
Right. Now, obviously, as you know, Matt, I think a lot of people are listening and watching. I'm a high school math teacher. I've been a teacher for 27 years, and numbers are very important to me. And, especially when it comes to dollars, because, it's affecting your bankroll. So let's talk about that for a second. If you do a $1 exacta box, 1, 2, 3, that is a $6 bet. That's betting all the possible combinations: 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 3, 2. right? That's six combinations, $6. If you do one with 2-3, or you said over, either way, if you do one over 2-3 and you do 2-3 over one, that's $4. You've just saved yourself 33% right there, Matt. And if you're playing with bigger dollars, that can mean a lot. Not only that, as you mentioned, you can press up if you're playing a smaller dollar amount total of four. Now you can try to hit the exacta for $2, $3, $4, etc. etc. Now,
Exactly. So
now,
take
now,
you
I know
just
someone's going to say below the video player, Matt. And by the way, we'd love to hear your comments below the video player on YouTube about what you like to do and how you like to bet, especially exactas and trifectas. Some might say, well, Howard, what if it comes, 2-3 or 3-2 and the one doesn't come in? My argument, Matt, here is you need to have an opinion of these three horses. You can't possibly think that these three horses are exactly the equal chance of winning. And if you do, I personally probably wouldn't bet an exacta then, in my opinion. I would just lay on one horse you like more and press up with it. I'm sorry I interrupted you. You want to say something, and we'll show the Dutching calculator, Matt.
no, that's fine. I think we were done with that point. I completely agree with you. And it's funny, before I took this seriously, before we started, I took down a handful of notes that I wanted to be sure to get across. One of the key points I want to make is I very often do start from the concept of Dutching. So if I look at a race and I have two A's, forget that one of them might be an A plus and one might be an A minus. As we can apply this Dutching concept to doubles in the same way you can vertically within a race. And as I'm looking at placing two daily doubles, I at least start with the same base bet. Maybe whatever, $100 double, whatever for each. But pretty quickly, then I will look at the probable payouts and say, okay, depending on my opinion, maybe I want to equalize the payouts by betting one harder, or maybe I want to leave it exactly like it is because I actually have that may be consistent with my opinion. I don't think just because a horse is a favorite or the payout is lower necessarily means you should go in and play that harder. You should only do that if that's consistent with what you actually think. But if that's what you actually think, this is a problematic situation for a lot of people where you took
Yes.
one horse in this race, two horses in the next race. One of them's the favorite, the other isn't, but you have them both equally. You like the favorite a lot more, and you're not going to get equal money because you haven't pressed up enough to do that. And so if you just start with the concept of Dutching, you can then at least look at that and say, do I want to make adjustments from there? But I think it's a very helpful concept to at least, again, let's say your two horses are weighted equally as both A's. Right. If the odds board has them paying varying amounts, you can equalize that and make them pay exactly consistent with what your opinion is.
And it works with trifectas. And I like playing what are called reverse key or back wheel certain horses in trifectas. Let's just quickly talk about a trifecta example, and then I'll show the Dutching calculator and really we'll explain exactly what Dutching bets means. There are four horses you like for a trifecta, let's just say make it simple: 1, 2, 3, 4. But let's say I like the one the most, and usually in this example, Matt, when I like to reverse key or back wheel a horse, it's usually a horse that's somewhere in the range for me of 5-1 to 15-1. I like to try to get a price within the trifecta. Let's say the one horse is that horse I like. Let's say the one is 10-1, for example. I will often do one with 2-3-4 with 2-3-4, or I might use some more horses, but for this example, let's just use four horses. Then I'll go 2-3-4 with one only in second, with 2-3-4 in third. And I may or may not put that one in third. Depends how much I like the horse or dislike the horse. I could do 2-3-4 with 2-3-4 with one. Again, what that does for you, Matt, it allows you to press up your opinions and hit it for more than the base increment of 50 cents, which is what usually is in most tracks. And you can hit it for more, and you're weighing your strongest opinion. So again, I highly recommend in a friendly way. And Matt, you and I have talked on the show many times. People can do whatever the hell they want with their money. It's your money. Do what you want. But we are highly recommending you do not box horses in general, especially if you have a stronger opinion on one of them. Any quick thoughts on the trifecta example? And then we'll show the Dutching calculator.
The only quick point on trifectas, when it comes to pure Dutching principles, that's a little harder because you don't really have probables that you can look at
Exactly.
to see exactly what they're going to pay. And so you know to double up the unit on this one, you probably have to look at the win odds of the horse you have in first or the horses you have in first. And again, if your opinion is these outcomes are all equally likely, you may need to change the betting unit on one or two of your bets if it has
Yes.
too many favorites on top. Again, you're just trying to equalize the payouts you're getting.
Let's talk about what we see on the screen here, Matt. Now, there are many different Dutching calculators out here. I'm going to go full screen. This is from Odds Checker. I know a lot of people cannot see the URL at the top, but this you can obviously see Odds Checker. If you just type in Dutching calculator into into Google, you'll get many ones. This is from Odds Checker. This is their Dutching calculator. Obviously, we can ignore the English pound symbol. It doesn't matter whether it's pounds, dollars, euros, yen, that doesn't matter. What you see here and what we can type in, Matt, and let's use the horizontal example. Let's use a very popular contest play for myself and you as well, which would be playing a double, which of course most of you know would be trying to find the winner of one race into the winner of the race just after that, two consecutive races. Let's say we look at the probable will pays, which I don't think enough people look at the probable will pays, whether you're in a contest or not. Let's say one exacta for $1 pays $10, and the other exacta for $1 pays $16. So you look and you see that one pays 16, one pays 10. What you can do there is you just type in what it pays at the dollar. I suppose you could put in the $2 increment also, but you really should be putting the $1 increment. And then below, Matt, you can type in on this particular website exactly how much you want to spend. Now, that could vary from anywhere from $2 to 10 to 50 to 10,000, whatever, right? Let's just use $50 for example. Let's say you want to spend $50. I type in 50 there where it says total stakes. I'm going to take you off the screen, and what you see, ladies and gentlemen, on the screen is how much you need to bet to get the same result. And Matt, I'll bring it back on screen. That is what Dutching means. Dutching means you're betting different amounts to get the same result back. And that is a very highly recommended betting strategy from Matt and myself. And you don't have to really listen to us. It's a very commonplace in many handicapping books, and some of the smarter people we know do this as well. So in this example, Matt, you'd have to bet. Now you don't have to bet to the penny, obviously, but you'd bet around $31 on that double that pays 10 to 1, and you'd only have to bet about $19 on the double that pays 16 to 1. And you can see on the bottom what I like about this, Matt, is it gives you your profit. So you would profit $257.69, and therefore your return. Of course, you're just adding the $50 that you bet there. You would have in your account $307.69. And what I like about this, Matt, also, and I'll let you interject here, is on this particular website, you can do up to 6 different combinations. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, and the point I want to throw in is, okay, so take the really common example where you're looking at this and saying, wow, that's a lot of profit. That's more than I thought I'd be getting. Those payouts are pretty good. What this also allows you to do is look and price out a third combo. And so it at least allows you to say, okay, there's one out there for 26 bucks. If I wanted to throw that one out there, how much am I changing things? And you could do it back and forth to see how much your projected profit changes. But the bottom line is you can see that it only costs you 9 units to add that other combo. So this is very, very good for allowing you to experiment and see essentially what you can afford. Probably, or hopefully, as people have listened to me for long enough, you can probably tell that this has direct application in the tournament world. You get to your last race, you have a target hopefully in mind for what you'd like to hit. You know how much money you have in front of you. This is something you'll see with me and my buddies at tournaments all the time. We get down to the last race and we're all kind of huddled over the computer and over a pad of paper. And we have one of us saying, just tell me what the probables are. And someone is plugging numbers into this, and they're trying to figure out for themselves what they can afford to play. How many combos? If I eliminate the favorite, I can afford this many more combos. It's just a really good way of laying it out for you visually, the consequences of playing more combos than less, or adding the favorite or taking them out. You can see the effect immediately. And when you have good friends that are, checking their phones for you, it just helps a lot. You can do this yourself, but it's a lot of back and forth looking at the screen. So it is frankly a good reason to be sitting with friends in a tournament, or anytime you need some kind of help like this. I'll call Howard. Actually, Drew's really good at this as well. I'll call either one of them saying, help me out with this. I just need a little math help as I'm thinking through the strategy.
In fact, if I could pat myself on the back just for a quick second, myself and Drew Coatney, and then on one day and the day before on Friday, myself and Matt Bernier, we were dutching at the at Keeneland for the Grade One Gamble. Both days I happened to have a great weekend, but it came down to the last race, and I was using the Dutching calculator with Matt Bernier of FanDuel, fantastic guy, and NBC Sports on Friday, and then Drew Coney on Saturday. We were using this. And Matt, just to close out this segment here, for example, I know you like to play a little bit lower doubles or exactas. Let's just say you have a 10-1 and a 7-1. Explain again. Let's say you need to give me a dollar amount that you need to get to win this mock tournament. We're saying you want 1,000, 2,000. What would be your goal? In this example, let's come up with a number.
Okay, 2,100. Yeah, $2,100.
All right, 2,100. So if you type in $500, that was a pretty good guess of mine. How about that? So there you go. You would have 2058. So you'd have to bet a little more. So you can figure out how much you need. It goes the other way, right? There you go. How much you need to bet in order to have. There you go. There you go. Exactly. I'll make it full screen. You'd have to bet $510 into this double to get that ending result of $2,100. So obviously in a turn situation, you're guessing a little bit what you need, but you can get exactly to the dollar what you need to bet in that example to win the tournament.
And you're making a really good point for tournament's sake. My mentality with this example would be to turn around and find a way to bet the remainder of my money on other combos. What you've laid out here is a very elegant way for someone in that same position to be able to bet to get to their target without having to risk their entire bankroll. And for the person who really values those dollars and wants to take them home, they can very much make the case that they took their winning shot here, but didn't have to bet their whole bankroll to do it.
And the last thing I want to say here is, that's a good point. Let me just go back. Last thing I do want to say, because I know some people might push back and say, wait a minute, you're really lowering your odds. Or not lowering your odds, you're really getting a lot less than you would with one bet. Well, of course you are. I mean, that's the not the risk, but that's the sacrifice you're making by using two horses. In this example, Matt, I'm spending $200. And again, don't get carried away with the dollar amount. People, I could say $20. It doesn't really matter the dollar amount. Let's just say 20 for right now. That's a profit of a little more than 3-1, right, Matt? Because you're getting 62 back on a $20 bet. And of course, if you do a $20 10-1, you'd win 200, and you did 20 on the 7-1, you get 140. So you're only getting 3-1, but when you combine the 7-1 and the 10-1, those are the mathematical odds. You get 3-1, even though your odds are much lower. The opportunity to use one extra horse in many examples is huge and well worth the value of a lower odds.
Depending on your opinion. The other key point to make here, and as much as I'm a fan of everything we've talked about, there are a couple of real perils to using this. Number one, especially if you're in a contest and you just hit, there's 45 minutes until the next race. You're so excited. You grab your pen and paper. You grab your friends. Okay, tell me what everything pays. There's 45 minutes to go. These payouts change all the time, and there is nothing more annoying than 15 times. What are the payouts now? What are the payouts now? Because you're going to keep updating and updating. So I would say just be patient. there's no reason to be typing anything in until, 5-10 minutes to post, take whatever. A corollary to this, and as friendly as I try to be and supportive as I try to be of smaller tracks, you got to be real careful when the pools are small, because a $50 bet, a $100 bet could have a meaningful change on these numbers, and you're sitting there with this trying to make this an exact science, and one big bettor can be throwing everything off. And so Breeders' Cup Day, Derby Day, just about any day at Saratoga, right? Everything we just talked about works really, really well. I would just be careful about harness racing on a Tuesday night, about, teeny tiny, little daily double pools. The numbers just change too much, and it's not
Absolutely.
reliable.
Absolutely. Matt, listen, we really appreciate your help. It's a fascinating conversation. Everyone at home, choose how you want to bet, but we're recommending take that box, throw in the trash for the most part, and start Dutching your bets. Good luck, everyone. All right, Brad, there you go. Hopefully that was very meaningful and people got a lot of it. The best example I could think of recently is what happened with Drew Coatney in the 2022 BCBC, where of course he made a big win bet on Flightline. But if you couldn't do that, or you chose not to, you could Dutch exactas with Flightline over a few horses to get to the value you wanted. In fact, fortunately for Drew, it worked out, but there are a lot of people who played big exactas underneath. And I'm sure they used that Dutching calculator, Brad, figuring, okay, I need to bet this much on each exacta to get to where I needed to.
Yeah, Howard, first off, listening to Matt takes me back to the grandstands at Ellington Park, where he would explain some of this stuff to me. And he's just a great source of knowledge, and does a great way of explaining it in a way that really gets back to pressing your opinion. So to me, this whole concept of tournament play is different than when you're playing in just cash on the side on a Saturday. And in the tournament play, it is all about setting what that number is and then laying out your plays that are going to deliver that number. And Dutching is a great way to make that a little bit simpler in terms of, all right, I'll take 3-1 on these two horses, the example that Matt and you gave, because that's okay. That will take my bet of X to Y, and it fits in very nicely into my formula.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on the show, I'll let you tell about your Appalachian Trail story, Brad. If I knew back way in the day, like yourself, like I knew now, I mean, I hear our bet and boozing guys, Kyle and Charlie and Patrick and Noah, and we're teaching them how to Dutch bets, and they're doing when they're 21, 22. Brad, just think of how much money you and myself and Matt and so many other people wasted just by being naive or ignorant to these different ways of betting. It just makes a lot more satisfying now knowing that we're doing the right thing. We might not win every bet, but at least we know we're putting ourselves in the right position to win.
Well, it all comes down to you want to have a positive ROI. To me, in the end, you can try to be right or you can try and make money. And to me, I want to make money. I don't really care if I'm wrong on some bets, but if I'm right, I want to make sure that it delivers me a positive ROI.
Crush it.
And Dutching allows you to use that efficiency in a way that just drives that home.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully people learned a lot from the show. And again, you don't have to use the odds checker Dutch calculator. You can use many others. Brad, as we end the show.
Howard, I have my own spreadsheet. I just have a simple spreadsheet that does my Dutching, and it works very straightforward and very easy.
Yeah, and you can use your own. That's definitely beneficial. Brad, very quickly to end the show, tell everyone what you did coming from last fall, was it? I'm sorry, the timing now.
Yep.
I'm getting screwed over my head because what you did is what a bunch of people in this country do, but I still think it's amazing and not easy. I think it's worth sharing your story for the last minute on the adventure you had not too long ago.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I love the outdoors. I like hiking. When I graduated college, before I started my first job, we had 4 guys back in 1983 try and hike the Appalachian Trail. And, technology was much different back then. it wouldn't surprise me if we each had a case of beer on our backpacks. And I had a great time. So I am now retired, and I really like these experiences. And so I wanted to try the Appalachian Trail. So last summer, before Breeders' Cup, I spent 3 weeks hiking the Appalachian Trail by myself. It wasn't with anybody else. And I just loved the aspect of planning this hike and experienced it like I thought I would, and came to the realization that, fast forward, 45 years, my body doesn't respond as well as it used to. So there was a lot of aches and pains. But I will tell you, this fall, before the Breeders' Cup, I am planning another 3-week hike. I'm going to pick up where I left off in North Carolina and hopefully try to make it to Virginia. Because it is I love being outdoors. I don't mind being by myself. It really is just another great adventure that I like to spend my time doing. So
terrific, my friend. I know you're going to have a great time. We appreciate you so much being on the show, Brad. We love you. I'm so happy to see you at the Hawthorne Invite. And the best thing about it is I get to see you again in about 2 weeks at Saratoga, as we're going to be there Wednesday through Sunday during Jim Dandy Week. And we will get information out to everyone, Brad, on where we're going to do the meet and greet. I think Paul Halloran put in the chat. Yeah. I think the Jim Dandy Bar, actually, I think is the name of the bar that we were at. But we'll communicate to that, everyone. We'll probably do it on Saturday or Friday morning before the races.
And Howard, can I say one thing?
Of course.
Just hats off to you and what you do for the horse players around educating, handicapping. I've learned so much from you and Paul and Pete, and even from the younger guys that spend time doing this. So I know it's not easy. I know you put yourself out there, but it really does a service to horse players, and I can't thank you guys enough.
Thanks a lot, Brad. That was the whole goal of this podcast from the start, is to teach. That's what I do. Yeah. I've done it all my life, and I just like trying to teach other people the skills that I know and make people happy and have fun. So, Brad, I really do appreciate the sentiments. Please make sure you watch all of our shows. We got a lot of shows coming up, including Saratoga Today morning shows. And we'd really appreciate you looking to purchasing our Power Pick tip sheets for the Saratoga meet and the Del Mar meet, so we can continue to give you the best information possible. For my good friend and 2019 BCBC champ, and he'll be back on the show, I guarantee it, my good friend Brad Anderson. This has been your host, Howard Kravitz, episode 27 of Horsin' Around. Crush your bets wherever you play this week. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.